All right, welcome in everybody. This is I don't know, we're calling it, just college baseball excitement live on Twitter, something that I've never done. I'm excited to have AJ Sessions of College Baseball Central, also in Off the Bench is the Hot Corner. If you haven't checked it out yet, him and Caleb Friedman from Auburn Baseball last night had a one-on-one session. Really good, man. Insight about Auburn baseball. Check it out, especially, him and Alex have been making the SEC baseball rounds. And so it's good content. If you really want to get to know more than just about your team and know what's going on in the SEC this year, follow what they're doing at the Hot Corner. It's great stuff. But then we got Dennis, aka Bomb Squad. I don't even like calling him Dennis. Like, dude, you're bomb and nothing else. Met him last year in Arlington. Can't wait to see him. What are we, like a month out, like from Arlington again?
Yeah, we're 31 days from opening day, and then Arlington will start on February 23rd. So I'm excited for it, man. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm excited for what you got going on, Omaha's by Fireside. If you're not familiar with that, man, he's diving into the life of what Arkansas baseball players and their families live. A unique show, not something in off the bench gets the player stories. AJ, their show talks about the teams, but Dennis is diving in with what it's like being a part of that family and that experience, getting to know them and how that works. And so all three of us working together collectively to grow the game. And today is one of those days. And, I'm going to start. I'm going to direct it towards you, AJ. Like I said, there's nothing scripted about this. Obviously, just messaged you guys a little bit ago. So no like actual direction we're going to do this. But starting with you, AJ, let's dive into D1 baseball's top 25. What's the biggest thing that you liked about it?
I like that they weren't afraid to take LSU out of the one spot and give it to Wake. Wake Forest, I think, looking at that roster this year, they deserve the number one spot. The talent they have on the pitching side and on the offense, they have two top five units on both sides of the ball. And so many times we see the defending champ, if they're bringing back key guys, they get the benefit of the doubt. And for me, just seeing them put a team that didn't even make the finals last year and giving Wake Forest its roses for the program that they've built. That was very refreshing to see while still keeping LSU, in a respectable number 4 spot.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Dennis? What was the thing that, man, you just saw it and you're like, you love that?
Well, I'll say this: the Wake Forest, I think that's 100% deserved at number one with what they've got with the transfer class they have coming in. One of the things I really liked, and we could debate whether teams are too high, too low all day long, but seeing the inclusion of squads like East Carolina and UC Santa Barbara, Coastal Carolina, Northeastern, these squads that a lot of people may not know a lot about, but have really good baseball programs. And that's what I love about college baseball. It's not the same teams year in and year out that are going to be in the top 25. There's a lot more parity across the country when it comes to baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say for me, I mean, there's actually a lot of things I love. Of course, naturally when I post it, I'm going to say the things that I disagree with. And this is something that I actually disagree with, but I love that they're going to stand on it. I like Alabama at 19. Alabama is a team that I'm not high on, but what I love is they have been talking up Alabama all offseason, and it wasn't just for show. They stood behind the talk. They put them up there in the rankings. They believe they're going to have a good season. And that's my whole thing, right, guys? If you're going to talk about it, actually be about it. And like, I see so many times people will, from no matter who they're covering or what site they're from, talk so good about a team, and then it doesn't match up with their rankings, right? So I love seeing Alabama up there. Like I said, not something I believe in, but I'm good with it. As far as something you don't like, AJ, what is something that you just don't, what's not like throw anything hateful, but what's something you just see and it just leaves you kind of mind boggled?
Yeah, I mean, going to the Alabama pick, I don't know, have you have Alabama in the top 20 and South Carolina barely at 25. I think if you just do a pure roster comparison against most of these teams, I think Iowa at 20 is probably a little too low as well. Um, but just looking at it, I think South Carolina has a lot fewer question marks than some of the teams in front of them. And frankly, I would love to hear the conversation about why they fall behind teams like Northeastern and Texas Tech and Alabama.
Right. And let's talk about South Carolina for a second. We were talking about obviously in the heart of that lineup, talking about Petrie, Casas, and Messina. But let's talk about the pitching side because I think AJ, for somebody like you who study South Carolina the way you do, I don't think people realize that they have a great set of pitchers. And talk about a few of those guys that maybe people aren't understanding that South Carolina is going to come back with some guns on the mound.
Yeah, and I mean the two guys they returned who threw important innings and started for them in important games last year, Eli Jones and Matthew Becker, both are juniors. Both have been there and had success in the SEC. You know, we're talking Matthew Becker threw 6 innings, 1 run against Vanderbilt his freshman year, and that was after 6 innings, 1 run against Texas back when they had that incredible lineup. Eli Jones went into tough environments and gave quality starts to a South Carolina team that desperately needed it when Will Sanders and Noah Hall went down. So these are guys who have been there not only in the Division I play, but been there in SEC play. And then you're bringing in Roman Kimball, who's just kind of the X factor. He's been mid-90s. He can probably touch upper 90s once he gets settled into a role. Might start as the Sunday guy, but has Friday night stuff. And that's just an arm that no one's seen in a couple of years. So kind of going
well, if they want to see him, you know, a plug for him, if you follow Roman on social media, he puts out the videos of, you know, if you want to see work ethic, he's showing you firsthand. We talk about things of growing the game. Roman has been showing you his whole rehab and where he's at, and you can see him throw live, and he actually gives this discussion about what he's got going on. So if you want to kind of see the insight of a recovery of a college baseball pitcher and then see him and where he's at and kind of get an idea of that X factor AJ's knowing about, definitely follow Roman on social media. It's a great follow.
Yeah, I mean, he's posting everything from live at-bats he has against teammates to his workout back home to just, you know, even go back to when he tore his UCL, the rehab process from the get-go. He always even goes back to when he was playing for Notre Dame against Tennessee in that super regional. So he has a ton of good content on that channel. If you like college baseball, if you want a behind-the-scenes look, there's a great avenue for you.
Absolutely. All right, Dennis, when you looked at it, I know me and you messaged each other immediately, so I have an idea. I know what you're going to say, but what was the thing that jumped off to you?
The first one jumps out at me is Vanderbilt sitting there at 6. Yeah, they've got good pitching. Where are they going to score runs? They lost probably their best 2 bats. I just think Vanderbilt's going to struggle. They ended the season last year at number 19, and for me, they didn't add enough in the offseason to justify a jump to number 6 in the postseason. And Texas A&M sitting there at 8. I'm not as high on Texas A&M.
Well, before you continue on, let's jump on the Vandy thing for a second, and it kind of goes with what AJ was saying, talking about South Carolina. I feel the same way also with Tennessee, and then obviously you got Florida. Like Vandy is, to me, easily the 4th best team in the East, and I just don't know how you have them ranked higher. And I really think, you know, and it's not to their fault that the East is loaded, but I mean, I think they're really going to struggle. And if you look at their schedule, I mean, the East is going to be brutal. I'm going to say it. You know what? I'm going to take a thumping, Dennis. AJ, I'm going out there and saying it. Oh, God, I'm going to have so many people on Memphis. I think the East is stronger than the West this year. I just do. And, you know, I feel really strongly about Arkansas and LSU. Outside of that, you know, I got Ole Miss at 3. It could easily be A&M, but I just don't feel as strong about the West. It's where the East, I mean, I feel like your top 3, top 4, if you include Vandy in that conversation, are just stacked.
Yeah, and if you look at the top 4, you're talking Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, and then Vanderbilt.
And then some people have a true belief in Kentucky. You saw them in perfect games, top 25. All right. And so you see AJ. So, I mean, you're talking about 5 right there. Like, I can't feel that same way about the West. I understand that Bama and A&M are in this, you know, top 25, but for me, they're really not. And I just don't feel as good about them as I do those boys out east.
No, I 100% agree with you. After you get past the top 2 in the West, there's a pretty good drop off. Where in the East, those top 3 or 4, all 4 could be potential Omaha clubs, depending on how you look at it. Me personally, I've got 2 of them in the East going to Omaha, in my Omaha 8, in Tennessee and South Carolina. I do think Florida falls short of Omaha this year. We'll see how it plays out.
I would love to see a redemption in the super regional, having those 2 face off again. I really hated, you know, South Carolina was just injury, you know, full of injuries, snake bit going in that series. A lot of people don't realize that. They think that Florida just hammered them, but South Carolina was facing a lot of adversity. But I would love to see that matchup again this year, both teams healthy, best on best.
Oh, was that one to me?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a question. I was just talking back to what you're saying. Like I would love to see that matchup again. I already know where AJ stands on. He's 100% down. He would be there covering it, boots on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, Florida's ended South Carolina's season the past 2 seasons, so South Carolina definitely would like revenge there. But Jim, like you said, if South Carolina is healthy throughout the year, then they don't have to face Florida in a super regional. They were so depleted and pieced together a competitive team by the end of the year, but it was limping to the barn a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference. I was talking about taking heat. The biggest thing that I've taken heat for is actively going against my own fan base and saying that if South Carolina and LSU would have played a game 3 last year, they would not have won it. I would have, if I was betting on it, I would have bet on South Carolina. LSU got lucky to get the second game. And I bring that up to say at that time, South Carolina was playing better than any team in the country, any team, including Wake Forest. And it really shows what injuries did to them. It's not that, they came back to reality. They just got injured. And that's the war of attrition is huge no matter what sport you're talking about. But I feel like in college baseball, especially with the pitchers nowadays, it is the difference. I mean, Dennis knows this as well as anybody. Arkansas every year, I mean, they're doing prayers right now. Everybody should be starting every day hitting church before work because they got to hope that one of their starting weekend pitchers doesn't go down before the season because it's happened the last 2 years.
Yeah, we lost Peyton Pillette 2 years ago in Jackson last season. And there's speculation that that's why Dave shut fall workouts down as early as he did. Our fall workouts were over a full 2 weeks.
It's not speculation. That's why they threw once each. He was playing it safe. You know what Hagen Smith and Brady Tigert bring you. There's absolutely no reason to push it.
Yeah, they both threw one live outing and a couple bullpens, and that was it. Mason Molina probably got more work than any of the other top. Those 3 guys are going to be in that rotation. A little bit of condolence to that is if we were happen to lose one of those, you've got a dude right there at the back end in Will McIntyre. Yeah, you're going to have a drop off, but that's a guy that's proven he can be a Swiss Army knife and give you innings out of the bullpen or as a starter. So,
I mean, I really like their depth and their quality of arms. Obviously, we're also high on Gage Wood while we're throwing out names, but I think that's one thing. Arkansas, they're going to have to prove it with the bats. I think they're a lot better than, some of these people who are completely acting like Arkansas doesn't have any bats, but their pitching is definitely going to be their strength, but it's a massive strength. If their weekend guys do what they're supposed to do, and then we've talked about their schedule lining up. Their schedule lines up perfect. It's the reason why I think they will win the SEC, no problem. I mean, Arkansas being with as much talent as they got, having the schedule lineup. LSU's got to go to BAUM Walker. Look forward to seeing you there. That's going to be electric, but that's a hell of an environment to play in. But it all just lines up. But getting into my biggest issue, I thought this might be where you go. BAUM, where is Oregon and Campbell? You know what? I can deal with people maybe not believing in Oregon, but I don't understand what Campbell has to do to get any kind of love. But what I do love about this that I don't like about Campbell, putting UCSB at 17. That means I'm going to start the season in Bowie's Creek, and I'm going to watch Campbell dismantle the number 17 team on there. And then hopefully week 2, they will be in the top 25. But, I know how you feel about it, BAUM. I'm going to give you a chance to talk about it first, and then I'm going to see if AJ feels any kind of same way. But talk about how you had both of them in your top 25 as well, and they're not on this one.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at a squad like Texas Tech at 21 that there's so many questions there with Texas Tech. And then you've got Campbell coming back. Do they have the big name stars? No, but that's a veteran ball club that plays gritty, plays dirty, just goes out there and knows how to win balls, sort of like AJ's love for Kentucky. I think Campbell's the same type of ball club. They just know how to go out there and win. And Oregon, yeah, they lost some to the draft and they lost some of their incoming class, but they've still got a really good incoming class and a really talented ball club. And I feel they'll challenge Oregon State for the Pac-12. I do think, like Arkansas, I think the schedule sets up better for Oregon State to win the Pac-12. But Oregon,
we went through that last night on the episode with Aiden Jimenez. Man, they got Oregon, Arizona State, Stanford, and UCLA all come to them. Literally, the other top 4 teams in the Pac-12 come to Oregon State. There's no reason why they shouldn't be a national seed with this thing lined up. I have Oregon as my Omaha 8 team. I kind of want to change it, Bomb, but you know me, I don't like to be that guy. But AJ, I was going through it last night, and after we cut Aiden loose, I looked at Daniel. I said, I don't know how I don't change my Omaha 8 and put Oregon State there, because they're going to line up. They're going to be a host, and them hosting the Corvallis, I just feel like they're going to roll to Omaha. But I'm going to stick with the Ducks.
Well, it was 2 years ago that they lost their home. Was it Super or Regional? Wasn't it to Vanderbilt 2 years ago?
2 years ago, Oregon State did, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite part about Aiden last night, talking about postseason, he said in Baton Rouge last year at Alex Box, he wishes he would have got the opportunity. He wanted to come in during that tie game, and I thought it was awesome. This is what you need to be a guy who comes in, right? And from the bullpen, you need to be not scared of anything. He wanted all the smoke. He said, I wanted to be on that stage against LSU at Alex Box. I wish it would have been me. And I was like, I said, Braden Joubert would have took you yard just the same. But, for real, I love that. That's the kind of guy, and he's going to be the Sunday starter this year. I love that he has that mentality. He's scared of nothing. It's got me really high on Oregon State. Going back to their top 25, coming back around to you, AJ, looking at the SEC, we got let's stick there for a second, and then we'll get out to other conferences. But we got to stay home first. So we got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let me ask you this. Do you think there's any kind of possibility we see what we saw last year, possibility 8 SEC teams hosting when this thing is said and done?
I mean, let's count through them, the teams that could. You got top 4, 2 in each division, LSU, Arkansas, Florida, Tennessee, in my mind, kind of virtual locks at this point. And then South Carolina, Kentucky hosted last year. A&M, Auburn hosted last year, and I'm high on them this year. And then they got Alabama close right now. It's possible. It will be very difficult. I don't think we see it. I think we probably see 6, maybe 7, which is still that's half the conference.
Right.
And then you're going to see the teams that don't host get sent out either out west to go be a 2 seed and torture somebody like Oregon or Oregon State.
Your worst nightmare, getting that 2 seed. It's a powerhouse from the SEC. Thanks for nothing.
Yeah, but the potential is absolutely there. I think especially the East is as loaded as it's ever been. But with a little bit of lack of depth in the West potentially, we probably don't get to that 8 number.
Yeah, no doubt. So, Baum, let me ask you, is it better for baseball, in your opinion, to have the regionals more spread out, not having as many SEC teams, or do you like it simply because bigger stadiums, bigger crowds, obviously, our territory?
Money-wise, yeah, you want it in those bigger stadiums. But last year, when I posted a map of how the regionals stacked up, and I made the comment, not very regional, I could play it both ways. Me, myself, give it to the teams that earned it, regardless of where they play at, regardless where they're located at. Give it to the teams that earn it. If that means there's 12 regionals in the South and a couple up north and 1 out west, so be it. You need to earn it, plain and simple.
So let's transition off the SEC, and I'll stay with you, Baum, because I don't want to be the one that does it. Everybody says I'm blinded. I have some sort of love for Wake Forest. All 3 of us, I love that it's the 3 of us. I can say this boldly. AJ, did you see where I actually tagged you? The 3 of us were the only ones that I know that were on Wake before last year started. Nobody else. And I took a lot of criticism. AJ was the first one I remember to jump on it. And then Baum, we talked a lot about it. But this year, people are like, I don't understand why there's so much love for Wake. I'll just give the simple stat that you have 5 guys projected to go in the top 30 of the MLB draft. That kind of speaks for itself. But from your eyes, Dennis, talk to me why Wake would be number 1 in yours.
Number 1, that starting rotation. Burns, Hartle, Massey. You can stack that up. And as much as I love our starting rotation here in Fayetteville, those 2 starting rotations, and I'll throw LSU's in as well. That's why I personally have those 3 teams being there at the end of the season in late June. Those starting rotations are tough to beat. And then you throw in, I'll even throw TCU into that mix a little bit, but they don't have the depth. and that's why I give a little bit of the edge to Arkansas. I think we have a little bit more depth than Wake Forest and LSU on the starting rotation. But then you add to that Nick Kurtz and the dude that I think may actually outshine Nick Kurtz this season in Seaver King being the linchpins in that lineup. I think Wake Forest is just lethal.
We've seen it, that position to be in. So whether it was Tommy White with Dylan Cruz, or if you stick with Wake Forest in the same team, and you talk about last year it was Nick Kurtz for Brock Wilkin, being the guy behind the guy is an awesome place to be. That's why when me and AJ talk about that South Carolina lineup, however it lines up, but being before and after Ethan is a beautiful spot to be. And Tommy raked last year, Nick raked, and I think you're right about Seaver. I got to see him eyes on in Nashville against Vandy, and all he did was go out there and get 5 hits, and the thing was he sprayed it all over the yard. We're not talking about he just kept hitting the same spot. I'm a dude put it left, right, and center.
Yeah, and I love the argument people make. Well, he wasn't playing D1 ball last year. Okay, did you see what he did with Team USA? So I mean, the kid can play ball, and I'm excited to see what he does at Wake this season.
Right. So staying in the ACC, AJ, Clemson, Duke, Virginia, North Carolina, all 4 of those are in the top 15 as well. Talk to me about, of those teams, who you think is the most likely candidate to give Wake a push.
That's tough because each team has different strengths. You look at Duke, and Duke has the best bullpen, I think, in the country. Like, it's incredibly underrated. Go look at those dudes who threw last year. They're all return, and they're all incredibly productive. They get outs. They're effective. They come at you from every arm slot, every angle. But their offense is a question. Virginia, they lose so much leadership. Yeah, they return guys like Ethan Anderson, but they lose guys like Kyle Teal and Geloff. It's going to be question marks of who they fill. UNC, great recruiting class, talent coming in. Vance Honeycutt had a down year. They lose Mac Horvath. So who do they have? I think it's, as a South Carolina fan, I think Clemson probably pushes them the most this year. Will Taylor and Cam Canarella give them a true, just explosive combination at the top of that lineup. Great defensively in the outfield as well. And then it feels like their rotation isn't stellar. It's full of Saturday or Sunday level starters. They don't have a true Friday night guy right now, but they have depth and there's talent there. They're going to miss a guy like Caden Grice, but
man, he was awesome last year.
But the rest of that talent is deep. And it'll be interesting to see. They lose Caden, they lose Billy Amick to the transfer portal. Who steps up, and does Cam take that leadership role? Does Will Taylor take that leadership role? And what do they look like this year offensively?
Yeah, you talk about Billy Amick, and I thought it's interesting because there's these projections for Clemson. It really shows, the power of Tony V. It talks about NIL. It talks about playing the SEC, the idea that, Billy left a Clemson team that's going to be right back there competing to go to Tennessee. I think he has a chance to thrive either of them. I don't think there is a wrong decision in that, but it's interesting with, your thoughts on Clemson. It'll be interesting to see. For me, I would like to see it be UNC. I told Vance on a show, when we talk about my Omaha projection numbers, North Carolina has killed me. I'm not putting them in an Omaha projection this year, but I picked them the last 3 years and they didn't make it one. So at some point, I'm hoping, even though it'd make me wrong this year, they'll make it. And maybe it'll be this year when I don't pick them. But I feel like North Carolina has a lot to work with. And just from a personal standpoint, being a fan of him, I would like to have him there. What's crazy, guys, is to talk about something within off the bench. Did you know that he played shortstop in high school, and our reigning defensive player of the year got thrown out to center field because, in his own words, he literally sucked fielding ground balls?
Hey, there are no hops in the sky. So
it's just crazy to think a guy's defensive player of the year, and he's playing a position that wasn't his. He just got thrown there. I told him, I said, if I was coach, I'd be talking about that was a planned, design decision. I'd be taking all the credit for it. But coming to you, BAUM, I got a question about a team. Big Ten is not known for being good in baseball. Let's call it what it is. I have a chance the third weekend of the year. I'm going to be at Swayze to watch Iowa coming to Ole Miss. Are you a believer in Iowa, or is this just Brody Breck and everybody's kind of jumping on it because they have a star?
I think it's Breck and then a bunch of other guys, and that's why I thought they fell short last year. I'm not a big believer in Iowa. I do like Bodie Breck, but other than that, I just don't. I'll be surprised. I think Maryland and Rutgers will challenge them for the Big Ten. I'll actually be surprised if they do win the Big Ten. So we'll see how that plays out.
AJ, do you have a team that you think is, worth noting outside of Iowa, and do you think Iowa's worth the ranking that they got?
I think Maryland's going to be back. Yeah, they lose their head coach to Alabama, but there's a ton of talent on that team. They can score a lot of runs. They were second in D1 in home runs last year. They're still going to rake. But at the same time, I do think Iowa deserves that noise, and it's not just because of Brody Brecht. Actually, if you look at the roster last year, Marcus Morgan was probably even a better arm, and he's going to be back being this.
I think Brecht got it because of the LSU game. Anytime you go out there and toss like that against LSU, you're going to get a lot of recognition. And so, to your point, there's probably going to be guys who aren't being noticed behind him.
Yeah, and I mean that offense is sneaky good, but they have a true set rotation of guys who make up the best rotation in the Big Ten. This is a team that they lost in the regional at Terre Haute to Indiana State, but they knocked out your Tar Heels. They knocked out Vance and those guys, and they did so by shutting down what was a banged up team at the time, but UNC was still a good offense, and holding them with quality pitching depth, and they have that again this year. Iowa, some people have them in their Omaha 8. I'm not that bold, but I think they're definitely in the conversation to be a regional host and win the Big Ten.
Yeah, so with that, bringing up the Omaha 8, Dennis, I don't know if AJ has put his out yet or if he's ready to, but I know you and me have. So right here, live, no turning back. I'll do it after you. Give me your 8.
My 8, of course, Wake Forest, Arkansas, and I think those will be the last 2 teams standing. LSU, Tennessee, Texas, TCU, Oregon, and where's my 8th one? Did I say Texas already?
I believe so. You talked so fast I didn't get a chance to write them all down.
Wake Forest.
All right.
Arkansas.
You had Wake, Arkansas, LSU, TCU, Texas, Tennessee,
South Carolina,
and Oregon.
All right. So it's crazy. That's why I'm not sure, Dennis, that we're not like a married couple, bro. Like, we're so in tune right here. Look, I only have one difference, and it was because we actually had the same 8, but I told you I had to make way for Campbell. I'm doing this. I'm speaking it into existence. Okay. And here's my justification. I have actually told Occupy LF that I am a firm believer Texas is going to Omaha. I think it is great for Texas to be in Omaha. After being 2021, seeing their fan base come, I want it to happen. But of these 8 teams, only one doesn't have an off-the-bench guest, and that's Texas. So that's going to be the only thing I can do because otherwise I don't have a reason to take Texas out. So I'm taking Texas out, and I'm putting Campbell in, roll humps, but give me the rest. For my final game, just getting way too far ahead because you went ahead and said last 2 teams standing. I got the rematch. I got the Wake LSU rematch on deck, the one that everybody is dying for. What about you, AJ? Are you there yet? Do you have your 8?
Yeah, so I tweeted my 8 out before Christmas, and I've been thinking about pulling out a team, plugging a different one, but I'm just riding with it. I'm going with it. First answer is usually the right one, usually the best one. Don't change it. So alphabetical order here. Not trying to seed anything.
I love the alphabetical order.
I got Arkansas, Clemson, Kentucky, Oregon State, South Carolina, Tennessee, TCU, and Wake Forest.
Dude, I love it because it's not the same as ours, right? And it gives us opportunity to, when it all comes said and done, we can do the whole I was right, you were right thing. Me and AJ have actually been more in tune this year than we normally are, it was funny. But I have zero issue with the Oregon State, right? We've talked about it. It lines up. I could definitely take out Oregon, but I'm going to ride with that. The Kentucky one is the one that's going to, I don't know. But, hey, great timing. We have Mason Moore on tonight from Kentucky on off the bench. I'm going to tell him, AJ, who knows ball, he's not a casual, has you guys in Omaha, so don't let him down. But with that, I talk about Mason. Give me Kentucky. Talk about why you have them, because to put them in Omaha, you have to have a lot of conviction on why you think they're that good.
Yeah, so this was a Kentucky team that went to LSU in a super last year. It's not like they weren't there. They hosted. They won their own regional. They fielded at the best clip in the country, and they're bringing back basically their entire core. And then the guys that they're losing, they're bringing in transfer pieces to basically upgrade at those positions. Pitching staff gets deeper, bringing in guys like Dominic Neiman and Trey Puza from the transfer portal gives them extra starter options should they need it. They don't. They're deep enough on the mound. All those guys get ground balls. That ballpark is a cavern. Their style of play, hit gaps, hit triples, don't try to launch it because it doesn't work in March and April in Kentucky. That kind of ball wins series in the SEC in the cold. You saw what happens when teams go and play in the cold. Tennessee goes to Mizzou last year and gets swept. Teams go to Kentucky and have trouble. And it's because Kentucky is confident in the style of ball they play. It's such an experienced group. It might be the oldest group in the country. It's definitely the oldest group in the SEC. And they've been there, done that, and they believe in the style of ball they're going to play. It doesn't matter who's on the mound. They barrel up hard pitching. They fight off Skeens. They peppered him around the yard a little bit. Pitching wasn't exactly there. Pitching improves. I think Kentucky,
I think that says a lot about their lineup, because they didn't just give him trouble once, but twice. Kentucky lineup. So the idea that a guy who really South Carolina, was really about the only one, right? That really got to Skeens at all. The fact that they did it twice. What I like about Kentucky is they're one of the few teams that will play small ball anymore. I'm actually, just as a general fan, it's not something that I would want to see all the time, but I like a team that does whatever is necessary to win, and going old school style and playing small ball and not necessarily being the team that's just trying to hit it out the park. I like Kentucky, and I do like their pitching. They're a team that I could put in the top 25. So I'm assuming, y'all's top 25 hadn't came out yet. I'm not asking for it, not asking you to do any spoilers, but, is Kentucky, I assume, in there?
So ours is actually still being calculated. I've created mine and put it in our little system because we got more guys who still have to vote. But I definitely have Kentucky in my top 25.
All right. So I was going to, and hopefully he'll come back, let BAUM talk about Arkansas, me talk about LSU, and then you South Carolina as we, kind of wrap this thing up. Because like I said, I didn't put a timetable on this, but I'll go ahead and start with LSU and kind of break it down with you, talking about their pitching. Dude, it's just wild. Complete opposite of last year, just trying to do whatever we can to find anyone outside of Skeens. Obviously Ty Floyd was there, but it was, his win-loss record obviously doesn't indicate, the struggles he had. It's crazy to think he never had a loss through some of those struggles, but, ultimately got it together when it mattered most. But outside of that, piecing things together, went down there and saw them during the fall multiple times, was just impressed. And the depth that they have, AJ, right now it's looking like Hurd is your Friday night, Holman is your Saturday, and Jump is your Sunday. But you can make a case for Lower, being in there. Cam Johnson, I can't stop talking about it enough. I know Alex did with you too. Like, when you watch a dude come in that big, he realized he wasn't even 18 years old yet, AJ. He just turned 18 last week when I did his birthday shout out. Like, he's throwing 99 from the left. His slider was just white. I mean, he had these dudes. I mean, I had the one video I posted, the guy was guessing, and he guessed terribly because he didn't know what to do. And so to think that they have that weapon, the number one freshman in the country, and that was, I watched those games. They didn't even get into, Herring or into, Nasty Nate or DJ Primo, Gavin Guidry, all those, like, and me and you talked about the amount of lefties they got. The depth of LSU's pitching is insane. Like, I mean, am I being a fan right now, AJ, or do you feel the same way about this quality of pitching arms?
No, I mean, the quality is definitely there. I think if you look at a question is, if Thatcher Hurd kind of starts the year how he started last year with a little bit of a struggle, then what's the rotation look like? Well, answered by Holman and Jump transferring in. If those two guys didn't transfer in, then you'd be throwing freshmen into the fire. Then you'd be having relievers step up into starting roles, and you have more questions. obviously there are still going to be questions about how do these guys perform in the SEC, but the talent is there, the depth is there. You just hope it's that if their struggles occur, that it's manageable, it's freshman stuff, it's not injury related, and that these guys can work through stuff because the talent is, top of the country with that pitching depth.
Yeah, and it's going to be on them to carry them, right? Like, let's make no bones about it. Like, LSU has some good bats, but you cannot lose what you lost, right? Dylan Cruz isn't walking through that door, right? And you have guys who've been a staple of the team for a long time, like Dugas and Beloso and Joe Bear. Like, those dudes are gone. And yes, you have guys that you hope to step up, like a Paxton Kling, for instance, right? But like, it's going to be tough. The guy that follows Dylan Cruz, I don't want to be that guy. You got Brown out there as a freshman, high expectations, tough thing to do. You expect guys like you hope, like Pearson, who's coming back, Travinsky, to really be a staple. Obviously, behind the dish, talking about having Travinsky, Milazzo, and Neal. Obviously, amazing problem to have. Too many good catchers, but the bats are going to take a step back, and it's going to be on the pitching to carry that load. The big question will be, we were talking about the guy behind the guy. Whoever ends up being for Tommy White, can you protect Tommy White in that lineup? BAUM, I ask you, do you think they're going to struggle to keep Tommy protected this year? Because I think it's a legitimate question.
I think they will a little bit. I do think Jay figures it out by the end of the season. The thing about Tommy White, though, is I don't think I saw a better two-strike hitter in the country last season. Of course, you don't want to throw the guy strikes, and you can always just put him on base. But if a pitcher gets in that situation, I think he's the best two-strike hitter in the country. But who is the bat that's going to protect him in the lineup?
I think that was the ultimate mistake, going to Omaha. Like, if I'm Manassi, I don't throw Tommy White anything he can hit for that opportunity. I get it, man. Camden is elite. Like, I don't care what anybody says about him after the fact. That dude's elite. It happens. Everybody try to troll him. And I get he's confident in himself. But I'm not, man, let's deal with Beloso, right? Like, and obviously Cade had his moments. But still, at the end of the day, I'm wanting to face Cade over Tommy. That just is what it is. My question for you, AJ, talking about that lineup, you actually have a lot of speed in there. I was just talking about Kling, for instance, right? The dude can swipe a bag anytime he wants. LSU and Jay are not known for the small ball we were just talking about with Kentucky, but with not having your home run hitters like you have this year, do you expect to see them to swipe more bags, to be more aggressive, play small ball?
I think they're definitely going to have to, especially in the SEC, to steal a couple of games here or there. And that's if the power bats don't click and all don't mash, because guys like Jared Jones and Jake Brown and Mac Bingham transferring in, they have the potential just to bash the ball all over the yard. And if that's their identity and if it works, then they won't have to run as much. But it's hard to have every guy come in and click. Not everybody's going to perform how you expect them to or how you project them to. So they're going to need to rely on a little bit more of that speed, because it is going to be present in the lineup with the guys like Kling who are going to be trying to set the table and get in scoring position for Tommy White and Mac Bingham.
Yeah, and you bring up Jared Jones. He was interesting last year because he was so hot, but pitchers figured him out. He's going to have to figure out, we're talking about Tommy's approach, right? He's going to have to figure out how to not just swing at everything he sees, because if you watch him, I mean, that's really what he does. But he's an elite talent. That's not me hating. That's just a freshman that when it came to it, the scouting reports were there. They kind of figured him out. But, yeah, he can get a hold of one with the best of them. The last thing, and then we'll transfer over to Arkansas, BAUM, we talk about their schedule. LSU's actually got a pretty brutal schedule. Do you think it's one of those things, it doesn't matter where they end up as long as they can be at home when this thing's all said and done for postseason? They're an Omaha team.
I 100% believe they're an Omaha team. I haven't looked at their full schedule, but I do know that they have got the pitching to go on the road and win.
Their one luxury is they got Florida and Vandy at home, but their West foes, for the most part, they're hitting the road.
I believe you can go into Mississippi State and win. The pitching at Ole Miss, I think, is going to be better than it was last year. I'm not sure about the lineup. They can go into Swayze and win. So having Florida and Vandy at home, that's going to help. And I honestly think they win the Vandy series. The Florida series could be a toss-up, and if they can win that series, then yeah, 100% they can punch a top 8 and be at home at Alex Box throughout the postseason.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll actually, after I give you all a turn to talk about your teams, I'm actually going to come back around and talk about Ole Miss because I'm actually sitting here looking at the hat that was sent to me for Christmas. I'm a believer in them. Obviously, I have them in the top 25. That was one of the ones that people said something to me about, but maybe I'm a little biased. I don't know. I went and saw 8 fall games this year. I'm a believer in that lineup, so I'll get into that in a minute. But let's come over to you, Dennis. Let's talk about Arkansas in depth real quick. Talk to me. Not just why you think they're an Omaha team, but just why they're so good outside of Hagen Smith and Brady Tucker. As a matter of fact, let's start with the lineup. The thing that people are sleeping on. Talk to us about the lineup.
I've heard people say that our offense is Kendall Diggs, and that's it. There are some question marks in the offense, no doubt. But you bring in a proven SEC hitter in Ty Wilmsmeyer. He batted over 300 last season. A guy like Jack Wagner. I think
he looked good. He looked good this fall.
He looked really good this fall. And I'll say this: it's a battle between him and McLaughlin for first base. McLaughlin hit the ball well. Wahiba Aloy is going to be a superstar at shortstop. Peyton Holt hit the ball well. Last year, the offense, the catcher position was a black hole in our lineup. We've got 4 catchers that all 4 hit the ball well and played defensively well. The transfer in, Hudson White, he's probably, as far as defensively, he's probably the one that has to do the most work defensively. But working with Bobby Warnes and Parker Rowland, he got better as the fall went along.
That was the thing Parker told AJ on the hot corner. He said behind the dish is taken care of for a long time in Fayetteville.
Oh, well, I haven't even mentioned the kid that's going to be an absolute stud in Ryder Helfrich.
He was high on him.
I think it's a toss-up between Parker and Ryder on who's going to get the most reps behind the dish. Of course, we're going to have Peyton Stovall back. That's a tough injury to come back from and be as good at the plate as you need to be. But I do think that's going to add another dimension. And there's some other guys out there, too, that we didn't even get to see during the fall. Lovich, we didn't see him at all in the fall due to injury. So it's going to be more than Kendall Diggs. I don't think we're going to have the power numbers that we did last season. But I think as far as for average and on base and guys hitting doubles to the gaps, I believe we'll be at or above 300 as a team at the plate this season with some good team speed. You can see some small ball from Dave. So I think the offense is going to be in better shape than what folks are giving it credit for.
Yeah, no doubt. AJ, would you say that Arkansas and LSU are similar in the fact that it's definitely, though, going to rely on their pitching to get them there to Omaha when it's all said and done?
Yeah, I think pitching staff, I think Arkansas is going to rely more on their starting rotation to set them up for wins and then let their offense just kind of score enough. Especially during SEC play. I think the offense has the potential for Arkansas to win games on their own, just like LSU's offense has the potential to win games on their own. But the pitching staffs are going to need to kind of be the identity for both of those teams to have success.
Yeah, so talking about the pitching staff, BAUM, like I said, outside the guys that everybody knows, let the people know who they need to have on their radar that you saw this fall, whether freshmen transferred in that are really going to be a big part of the team going forward.
The first one I'll talk about is lefty Parker Coyle. He had an amazing summer last summer, and he carried that over into the fall. Looked really good. Ben Bybee, Christian Fouch. As far as returning guys, and of course everybody knows about Gage Wood. He hit a little bit of a freshman wall there at the end of the season. But in the fall, he went out there and just decimated batters right and left. Had all of his stuff. He's developed a 4th pitch. He says he's not going to rely on his fastball as much. So he's going to have a good season. And if you get into the freshmen, Gabe Geckel and Hunter Dietz.
Let me tell you something about Geckel. Forget, one of the things I tell you I value, it's what players think. His own players I mean, he's got a hype train. And when the guys in Fayetteville are telling me how good he is, that's all I need to know. I don't care what any fan thinks.
And one we haven't got to see yet is Adam Hackman. He didn't throw it all during the fall, and he's another one of those freshmen that's supposed to be huge. The one guy I would love to put it all together, because I've talked to several of our hitters, and they've said he's got the best stuff on the staff by far, is Jake Faraday. He just can't find the strike zone. He's erratic. When he's on, guys can't touch him, but his problem is his consistency in finding the strike zone.
So what's his role, you think, having the kind of stuff he is, but being someone that maybe, obviously you don't want closing the game. Is he somebody who's coming first out the pen? Is he a setup guy? What do you see for him?
He could be a setup guy. He could be he comes in, gets an inning, comes in against one batter, let's say a Tommy White, and just goes out there and challenges him. But he's got to be more consistent. That's the big issue with Jake. And I'd love to see him put it all together, because great kid, great ball player. He just hadn't got it all. It's sort of like Jackson Wiggins for 2 seasons. Dude had amazing stuff, but when all you can do is spot a fastball and you spot it at the top of the zone, and a guy puts it out of the park and Lindsey Nelson, it's not serving a real good purpose. So want to see Jake get it together. And one that I saw that I was impressed with was Stone Hewlett, another lefty transfer that I was really impressed with the 2 times I saw him.
Yeah, no doubt. So, I mean, that really speaks to the depth. So the last thing on Arkansas, talking about that college baseball series, we'll meet up, talking about getting to face Oregon State, Oklahoma State, Michigan. I thought it was great for Arkansas last year, right? Going there, we were able to see best on best, and that was the thing, right? People act like TCU came out of nowhere. We saw it firsthand, right? I sat there with Jalen Battles, and he sat there and talked about how good they were. Once again, I value their opinion. And so when they come back around, everybody's like, oh, this TCU team just got hot at the right time. While that may be true, they were always that good. They just kind of hit a slump. And so I bring that up to say this year, having a team that we're all high on in Oregon State, right? A team with Oklahoma State that, maybe I'm not as high as others, but nonetheless, they're in people's top 25 for a reason. How good of a measure stick do you think that is? Just like last year and the year before. I love that Arkansas has made this a perennial trip. I like testing yourself early. How much are you excited about this and the teams they're playing?
I am absolutely 100% pumped, because it is a good measuring stick on, okay, here's where we're at. Here's what we need to work on. These are other programs that are perennial powers, and you don't want to go out there and lay a goose egg. Like you said, the TCU was sort of a foreshadowing to what was going to happen later in the season. I can look back to the 2020 season, when it was all top 10 that were in Arlington. And of course that season got canceled, but we got off to a good start. And I believe it was the year
Did
after.
y'all do it in 2020 and 2021?
21, we were in Houston and went 0-3.
No, 21 was when y'all went to, because I was supposed to go, and that's when I got snowed in like it is right now, and had to get refunded on my tickets from Globe Life. So I know that was at Globe Life, because it's all 6 top 10, Big 12, SEC. So did you maybe go to Houston in 2020?
Maybe in Houston 2020.
But so that means y'all have done it 4 years in a row, though. Yeah, coming out stacking the deck. But because y'all went 3-0 in 2021, because ironically Mississippi State was the only team that lost a game in that. The SEC went 8-1 in that weekend. So kind of crazy being that they won, but I love that. I mean, it is a true measuring stick. And like you said, we were able to see TCU and how good they were. And I think for Oregon State and Arkansas specifically, like, I'm willing to bet AJ. I mean, that's probably, I don't have the schedule out in front of me, but that's the game of the weekend, probably, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be a contrarian, you can say that, like, oh, Auburn plays Iowa, and that's 2 teams that could surprise. But no, that's any game Arkansas plays that week has the potential to be the game of the weekend.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, as we continue to talk and finish this up, I'm going to see what day they actually have that game, because that we have a good line on who the starters are, and I'm curious if it's day 1, day 2, or day 3. Here we go, pulling it up.
State's day 1. That's the
Day
Friday.
1, yep.
So, oh man, we're getting Aiden May against Hagen Smith, dude. Sign me up. I am going to be there. Oh, let's go. All right. So let's get into South Carolina, AJ. Obviously, we talked about them a couple different times already, but actually deep diving into it. We talked about Petrie, Costas, and Messina. Talk to everyone. Tell them about the rest of the batting order.
I mean, just kind of going around the diamond. You get Parker Nolan transferring from Vandy. He's going to step in at second base, replacing Will McGillis. Big loss, but he was hurt for most of the year. I think a healthy Will McGillis, and that was a different South Carolina team, but more veteran guys stepping in. Parker Nolan had success at Vandy. Good glove, respectable bat, little bit of pop. That's what they need there. Talmadge Lecroy is just a grinder at third base. He'll hit for 290, maybe threaten 300, add a little bit more pop, but just be a good consistent glove, just real kind of grit team guy over there. You'll see him kind of fifth or sixth in the lineup, just spray line drives all over the place. And then going around the outfield, it's a bunch of speed power options. Kennedy Jones transferred from UNC Greensboro. This guy's torn up the Cape. He's a true prospect. It's not just like UNC Greensboro good. He is SEC good. He's a double-digit home run guy. He'll hit in the 320s. Provide a good glove out there. Center field, it's a competition. Evan Stone and Dylan Brewer coming back. Blake Jackson, new guy from Charlotte. All are glove first, contact first center fielders. Blake Jackson had a standout fall, so he probably has the inside track. Stone, a little bit more speed. Brewer, a little bit more pop, so you can kind of flex however you want to go in the lineup with whoever's hot. But it looks like it's going to be Blake Jackson to start the year. And then right field, you got Ethan Petrie. So, I mean, what more do you want in right field?
Dennis, we talk about what you can learn from off the bench stories. AJ knew this, but I didn't know this. And this is wild to think. I really want you to think about this, Dennis. We had Jacob Compton from Memphis on, formerly of South Carolina, and Ethan was not set to even be the starter coming into the season. He had a really tough fall, and it was Jacob Compton, and then Jacob Compton went down. Can you imagine a scenario where Ethan Petrie wouldn't have been in the lineup and we wouldn't have seen, I feel like in the end, some way or another, he would have been in there and we would have seen what we saw. But just think about it out the gate, and maybe it took some time before Ethan Petrie would have even been known.
Well, he didn't even start the year in right field. That was Dylan Brewer. Ethan Petrie got a pinch hit at bat because they were blowing out whoever. It wasn't Central Connecticut State yet. They played them next week. Might have played them that weekend, but they blew out whoever they were facing, and Ethan Petrie got a pinch hit at bat and hit like a 107 single back up the middle, and they got another pinch hit at bat the next game and hit another rocket, and was like, okay, maybe we need to slide this guy into the DH spot. Yeah, but it was what he does is incredible with the bat. I think if there's one question with South Carolina, it's you lose Braylon Wimmer at shortstop. Does Will Tippett step into that role? Does Lee Ellis, the freshman, whose glove and arm are already there, bat's lagging behind a little bit, does he fight for that role? You just get a transfer, Jordan Carrion, who has experience at Florida and Florida State. He provides depth. What does shortstop look like after, Braylon Wimmer being the second best player on the team last year, losing him? What do you get from that position? You just don't want a black hole like South Carolina had with so many injuries.
Yeah. Well, I know this. Messina laughed at the whole idea that Braswell left South Carolina and wasn't worried about shortstop. So if my guy's laughing, he feels comfortable about something and wasn't worried about him leaving. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out with Braswell coming to LSU and, like you said, Wimmer being gone. But I don't know, man. I really feel confident, even if you have maybe, you just have someone there defensively, isn't somebody who can swing it. As long as you have that, I feel like that lineup's more than capable enough to carry it and maybe just have, one weak spot if it falls that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go around the lineup and find – it's hard to go around the country and find a lineup that doesn't have kind of a lull at the end. And if your lull is one batter, great. You just don't want it to be 3 or 4 or 5 guys, which just South Carolina's depth Haven't even talked about Ryan Bakes, the freshman, who's been mashing the ball. Tyler Causey, transfer from UNC, he hits tanks. Carson Hornung, experienced bat, walks as much as he strikes out, sees pitches, actually batted leadoff for South Carolina to start the year last year. There is so much experience and just power potential, bat potential with that lineup. There's depth all over the diamond. It's very refreshing to see after a couple of years where South Carolina's been weak in some offensive positions.
Yeah, it's really what we talk about. If they can stay healthy this year, sky's the limit. When we talk about lineups that, 1 through 9, and the only weakness that's been in the Tennessee lineup for the last couple of years is the catching position. And so bringing in Cannon Peebles, I don't see a weakness in Tennessee's lineup. I think they have the best lineup, in the SEC, in my belief. And obviously, some people may not agree with that, but I just don't see it. And if you get guys like Blake Burke or Zane Denton to be more consistent, obviously you got Christian Moore, who was amazing last year. And we talk about Amick coming in and we talk about Peoples coming in. I really feel good about this Tennessee lineup. And if you have other guys outside of Drew Beam and Xander Sechrist to step up in that pitching staff, there's a reason why all three of us have them as an Omaha team. I really feel good about what them boys in Knoxville got going. The other team I wanted to talk about, because we brought it up and I was sitting there jotting it down, on Ole Miss. We talk about the transfer portal. Luke Hill coming from Arizona State and Andrew Fisher coming from Duke are huge hits for Ole Miss. I watched both of them all fall. Both those dudes can play. Ethan Groff sticking around. Campbell Smithwick is going to be one of the best freshmen in the country. You got leaders in Ethan Leger and Reagan Burford who, are in their 5th year. So I feel pretty good about that lineup. I don't think they're world beaters like, Tennessee or South Carolina, like we're talking about, but more than comparable. And then in the arms, JT Quinn, I think, is a certified ace. I really do. I think he's going to shock a lot of people this year. We'll see if Rivas continues to build off his freshman campaign. Grayson Saunier has to be, more consistent, but he has shown flashes of how great he can be. And then Riley Maddox is finally back healthy, coming off Tommy John. He looked amazing all fall. I only watched him give up 2 hits in 5 outings. So really feel good. Like I said, I'm not saying this team is Omaha bound, but for the people who kind of laughed about me having them in my top 25, just stay tuned. Especially because I'm going to the series with them hosting A&M, and that's the team that I'm not high on that a lot of people are. And that's kind of a good transition, AJ, because I know you are high on them, and maybe I'm just sleeping on what they got going on. And then I'll come to you, BAUM, after. But AJ, talk to me about A&M and what I'm missing here.
I'm not high on A&M.
Is it? I know Jake is. I thought you were too.
No. Jake and I are going back and forth. Yeah. No, but if you want an argument for A&M, I'll give you an argument for A&M. The transfer talent they brought in, if it clicks, Braden Montgomery can be the cornerstone of any team and have success. If it clicks, paired with Jace Lavalette, paired with Gavin Grohovic, the freshman they're bringing in, who is reminding people of, Jace Young over there at third base, I believe is what Kendall Rogers said. The talent is there. My whole question is, can the pitching staff throw strikes? What we've seen, great offense. You want a great offense with the pitching staff that didn't throw strikes last year? I'll point you at Mississippi State. They can slug, but they couldn't throw strikes. That's been their problem the past couple of years. And A&M's trying to rely on Chris Cortez, who throws 99 and walks 4 guys a game. His whip was higher than Jack Caglione's last year. You're going to rely on Braden Montgomery, who threw 7 innings last year because he walked 8 guys total. If they can't throw strikes, I don't trust them. And until they prove to me that they can throw strikes, I'm not going to trust them.
Yeah, let me ask this, because I was talking about it this morning, and I'll swing it to you, Dennis. Talking about Braden Montgomery, I think it was a terrible decision to leave Stanford. When you have, the opportunity to play in the Pac-12 and continue to dominate versus coming to SEC and drop your stock, I really just don't understand it. I don't find it to be a great decision. I get NIL opportunities, right? But you're projected top 10 pick. You're going to be paid soon enough. Stanford also is a perennial Omaha team right now, are they not? Obviously, we don't have them there this year, but I don't think everybody necessarily had them there last year because we talked about it a little bit with Tommy Troy on the show. But, I mean, would you have stayed put, Dennis, and just had success out in the Pac-12 versus possibly struggle in the SEC, or would you have went and tried to prove something like he's trying to do?
Me, myself, I probably would have stayed where I was at. I get where he's coming from. If you want to be the best, you want to compete against the best. And when you look across the country, that the best programs are in the SEC. So I can get it from that standpoint. And that may be Braden's thought process. I'm going to go compete against the best, prove that I can, and improve my draft stock in the process. So best of luck to him. We'll see how it turns out for him.
So if you were to put them in the West, we'll start with you. Do you have them in the top four, or do you have them in the bottom three?
I'd love to say bottom three, but I do believe they beat out Mississippi State, Alabama, and Auburn. I agree with you that I think Ole Miss is going to be sitting there in third, and I think Texas A&M will be tucked in there at four.
Yeah, and I mean it'll be interesting where AJ has him because he has said he's high on Auburn. That's where I messed up. My bad, AJ, because it was Auburn. He said he was high on, not A&M. Where do you have them at?
Yeah, so actually, if you want an in-depth analysis, I just released an article yesterday about my SEC predictions. Has some rankings, has some kind of roster breakdowns for everybody, and then kind of ceiling, floor, and then my personal prediction. But I have the West looking LSU 1, Arkansas 2, Mississippi State 3, Auburn 4, Texas A&M 5, Ole Miss 6, Alabama 7.
All right. Well, we're going to have to dive into something there, and it's an interesting thing that I'm going to go after real quick. Was there this fall, obviously, numerous guests. You're going to have to sell me right now on Mississippi State in that 3 spot, and it's interesting you have to do that. That's my son squad. That's where we're setting up NIL deals. We're sponsored by the Bellsmith. But I'm going to need you. Hey, Dennis knows how much I love Mississippi State, but you're going to have to sell me right now on that 3.
All right. So we'll start with this. Do I have to sell you on the offense, or do we know that they're going to produce?
No. They can absolutely rake, especially, I could probably walk back that comment I said about South Carolina about possibly the best 3, 4, 5. Mississippi State can definitely have an argument in that situation.
Yeah. So pitching staff last year, decimated with injuries. I mean, you had Gerangelo thrown into situations that he shouldn't have been thrown into as a freshman. He's having to open series for him. Gain valuable experience. Those guys that got shelled and just had rough experiences, those were freshmen and sophomore guys who weren't expected to be in those situations.
And it'll also be interesting because Foxhall got fired, and
Justin Parker is going to be that team's MVP this year. He is all about, hey, your stuff, the stuff that you throw, isn't going to be the best pitch that the batter's ever seen. Someone else has better stuff than you do. Someone throws the ball harder. Someone moves it more. Someone makes it do something else naturally. So instead of trying to throw the best pitch, throw your best pitch with your best execution. We're not trying to throw the perfect pitch every time. We're trying to execute, hey, you want to change up and you want it to fade away and you want to start outside corner and break off the plate. Then if you're going to miss over there. Don't miss over the plate. Execute your pitch by pitch. And I think that thought process will help a lot of the Mississippi State guys avoid walks, avoid finding barrels in the middle of the zone when they fall behind in counts. I think that ERA is not going to be in the 7s and the 8s like we saw last year. It's going to be more around the 4s and 5s. And with that offense, I think that staff just has to be average. And you're looking at, especially kind of in a West that isn't as dominant as we've seen, that 3rd place spot is up for grabs.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I'm high on Holcomb. I'm high on Nate Dome. I'm high on Gerangelo. This is how much I shoot it straight. Brooks Auger and Pico Cone are even my boys. I've drove to Starkville to hand them checks because I want to give them to them personally. They're both coming off injury. I've told them both, I'm going to need to see it. I'm going to need to see the old version of yourself. Outside of those 3, I can realistically say I have to see it from anybody to be confident in it. So it'll be interesting. It's something that I would love to see. I would love to see them be the 3rd best team in the West. I'd love to see them hosting a regional because it's great for college baseball. Duty Noble being a host site, I got to meet Dennis there this past year. He got to see what it was all about. I would love for it. The other team I want to ask you about is because we were talking about it, and you got to talk to Caleb Freeman last night. We got him upcoming on our show as well to get his story, but talk to me about about Auburn and what, he and you discussed and what, you feel about your projections with them.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to tell you that Auburn has hosted regionals in back-to-back years, would you believe me? Because they have.
No.
If I were to told you they've been to Omaha twice in the past, I think 6 years, would you believe me? Because
No.
they have.
And let me ask you about this. Being that I was in Omaha both years, why is it the Auburn fan base, unlike the other SEC teams, doesn't come? It really doesn't make sense when you look at the rest of the teams. Both years there just wasn't a big Auburn showing. Is it just because they're a much bigger football school, or what?
I think it's because they're trying to rebuild that fan base, rebuild the faith in the baseball program. And, it shouldn't take a couple trips to Omaha to build that fan base up. We see fan bases cheer for less, especially in easier conferences to play in where you can make more appearances. But, I mean, what Butch Thompson does with that roster every year and the transfer guys he brings in, if there's a single coach in the country who can have a locker room gel year after year with a bunch of new guys and get the best out of them, it's Butch Thompson. And last year they even get punched in the face right away. You're building around Jake Gonzalez as your Friday night guy. He starts the first game and then gets hurt. So you're having to remake your entire rotation 1 week into the year. They struggle a little bit, then catch fire and end up posting the regional. Jake Gonzalez is going to be back. They still have a ton of experience in that bullpen. And the offense, the guys they bring in, at every level of ball they played at, they've had success. And I just trust the talent, the depth. I mean, the depth to me was incredible. And in writing my kind of preview for the team, I was like, this guy could start at third, or these three guys. And then if they don't start here, then they could also start at short. But then there's also these other two guys, all can hit, all can field. It's going to be the deepest roster that you don't know about until June when they're knocking your favorite team out.
I love the way you put that.
I think that's one of the coaches that doesn't get enough recognition is Butch Thompson. I've always respected Butch, and I've always thought he's done a great job building a roster and then getting the most out of the roster that he has. So shout out to Butch Thompson and what he does every year. And maybe one of these days people will stop doubting him. He does it year after year. So we'll see how it goes this year.
Yeah, and so let me use this opportunity to plug AJ as a whole, right? First, where can they find your article? What's your handle so they can? It's obviously on the thing, actually, so I should say that. I'm not used to. Hey, remember I told you it's my first time to do StreamYard, but talk about the article. Where can they find it? Is it just at your Twitter, or are there other ways to find it?
College Baseball Central. I do my writing and reporting for them. We have a show on there that you can argue with me on there. We also do a live stream every Saturday to have you throw questions, but collegebaseballcentral.net, our website, you can find it through the Twitter handle. All the articles are posted there as well. It's in-depth looks at specifically, I do the SEC East teams. Some people are doing deep dives in the SEC West teams, but all of my articles will be College Baseball Central. Go follow that account. We've got a lot of guys from all over the country creating content for them. It's not just SEC, it's Pac-12. Got a couple of guys up north trying to rep Big Ten. It's all over the country.
Yeah, and I'm going to plug as a whole, like, that's why I love having you two on. BAUM, we talk because me and you talk more just on a regular day-to-day basis than me and AJ, but talk about guys who know ball. I love guys who know more than just about their team. You have people who want to make a case or argue college baseball with you, but they can't tell you about the different teams. AJ's sitting here listing off all these different facts, all these different players about these different teams. You're doing the same thing, Dennis. If you're going to legitimately have a baseball conversation, I want to know that you know more than just about your team and that you have a biased opinion. And so I love following you guys. I love following a lot of the guys that if I'm tagging and saying these guys are a must follow, there's a reason. They're going to give you great content, especially if you talk about their team. But if they're giving an opinion on something, it's because they actually know. And so follow AJ, follow Dennis, AJ with College Baseball Central, follow those guys like he's saying. I'll just use another example, Mark Garland. Like I love, I don't know as much about the Pac-12 as I would like to. It's a good follow. And it's, we were talking Oregon State last night after we do the episode. He's a guy that, he knew all the things that I was learning from the interview. So all these different guys you can follow, learn more about baseball. It's about growing the game, guys. We talk about it, right? Like, you don't have to pay for it either. That's not to throw shade at D1, but you can get the content from AJ and you don't have to pay for it. That's why I try to prop these other different people, writers, reporters, podcasts up, because I think in order to get college baseball and grow the game, we have to get people in. And one of the best ways to do it is give them the best content for free. I love giving them, the insight that we're getting from all these different guys, the videos that we're getting from all these different games. BAUM, I'm excited. Saturday, we're actually starting the video recording. It's from an 11-year-old, but it's going to be 100% authentic. You know it. My son has been to all these different stadiums. He goes on all these different tours. He's going to shoot it straight out the gate. Last time we were at LSU, when we weren't recording, from his own mouth, he said, I don't like the lounge as much as Ole Miss. They got a better setup with their pool table and ping pong table. That's an 11-year-old shooting it straight. LSU players may hate him because he literally told kids where you can find the players where they come from the workout facility to the baseball field and catch them to where there's no way they can avoid you, and you can ask them for autographs and pictures. Like, I love it. It's what he's going to do. It's 100% authentic to what he's seeing, and it gives people a look. And I'm hoping through all the things that the three of us and everybody else is doing. I posted today talking about going and seeing the games. It's one thing to see it on TV. If you live anywhere near a stadium that you can drive to, it is worth your time to go. Like, man, I mean, AJ, you're out there at Founders. I talk to players all the time. Founders is one of the most underrated places simply because people don't know about it. BAUM Walker has, this status about it. You talk to guys, they say Founders is a top 3 place for them across the board. The guys I talk to in SEC. Well, people can find this out more if they go to it. So if you, if you live next to a college baseball town this year, if you live in a place like where me and Dennis do, hey, we got 3, 4, 5 in driving distance. Check them all out. It's worth your time. But we could do this all day. Let's do one more thing. I'm gonna ask each of y'all. Like I said, I have no plan wrote down. I'm gonna come to you, Dennis. Let's talk about non-Power 5 conference. Give me your team that you think can shock everybody outside of Campbell, because we talked about them. Give me a team that you think can shock everybody and make some noise.
Oh, I doubt it's shocking sitting there at number 11 in D1s, but East Carolina. I think this is the year they could break through and get to Omaha. We saw Oral Roberts do it last year, and I think that's a squad that they're not ranked, but they return a lot of pieces that went to Omaha last year. So,
yeah, we talked to Kyle Booker about it. That's why I put them at the 25 spot to have them in mind, because he talked about all those returners, and then they had some transfers that came in, including himself. I think Oral's going to be sneaky good.
That's a squad sort of like DBU, great baseball programs, and they're there year after year. And you knew eventually they're going to punch tickets to Omaha. Oral Roberts did it last year. Are they going to do it again this year? Probably not, but that same
wouldn't
squad,
sleep on them.
So you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I've been waiting for ECU, and you brought up DBU. I've been waiting for both of them to do it. I don't think the DBU is going to come anywhere near it this year. But, yeah, ECU, and we talk about going to stadiums. God, the jungle is dying. They are dying to host in the postseason, specifically super regionals. AJ, can you imagine electricity from East Carolina, dude, if they're hosting a Supers?
I mean, they've been so close so much. I just think of that Super when they hosted Texas, and it was, they just couldn't hold on to the lead, but that environment was as raucous as it gets. I mean, it doesn't even matter if you're a Power 5 team or not. That's one of the top 5 environments in all of college baseball. When that place gets
it's
going.
on my bucket list. Like, I've got to, I want to be in that outfield. I want to feel that electricity. I will deck out in their gear. Y'all seen me when I go to places. As long as LSU ain't there, which they won't be, sign me up. But I love their accounts. We're talking about following people on social media. They push hard for ECU, and I would love to see it. This is the year that they can do it. The team that I'll bring up, you guys both know about it. Memphis, what they have done at the University of Memphis, they have guys on their roster from Ole Miss, Mississippi State, South Carolina. They're picking the guys up from those SEC programs who are sitting on the bench. What a smart move to do, because you're talking about guys who are the caliber of SEC. Yes, they're not starting on those teams. There's a reason why they're coming. But as an American Athletic Conference team, if you can get SEC guys up and down your roster, that's a good way to win your conference. And I think Memphis isn't going to win the AAC. That's all I'm saying. But I think for the first time in a while, ECU has a team that can legitimately push them. I'm going to that series. It's in Memphis. I look forward to it. Memphis has a brand new field. It's going to be nice. Hopefully they can just make it a series that puts Memphis kind of on the map, even if it does result in ECU winning. Last thing, AJ, I'm gonna use off my top 25 to go there. If you were to bet on it, who's winning the Big 12, Texas or TCU?
It's hard for me to go against TCU. It seems like even last year that they were a little bit ahead of schedule. Whereas Texas, it was, you got Dylan Campbell, you got Tanner Witt, who we know is back, but it felt like last year was kind of Texas's year to win the Big 12. And with TCU making Omaha and Texas not, felt a little bit like a passing of the torch for TCU just to kind of take it and run with it this year. Of course, anything can happen, especially in the Big 12. That's a crazy conference. Those standings are always so convoluted. You look at it and you're like, you could finish first or seventh, 6 games away from the end of the year. But if I had to bet, I'd go TCU.
How sad does it make you? It makes me while I embrace Texas coming to the SEC, that's going to be broke up. It's not going to be there next year.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I really, really am pushing for the preservation of rivalry games just across the country, with so many teams changing conferences and just trying to play more conference series, trying to play more conference games across other sports. You're going to lose games that you don't even realize you're going to miss until you look up and you're like, oh, we didn't see this happen this year. We're still going to get Texas, Oklahoma. That's going to be a protected rivalry in the SEC, but you're not going to get Texas Tech every year. You're not going to get Texas, TCU. You're not going to get Oklahoma State. Like, those are games that are sorely going to be missed across all sports.
Yeah. Dennis can give you a nice rant, rightfully so, about their permanent opponent being Missouri. Like, what a screw job. And I get it that you can only pair these teams with so many teams, right? But man, do better by Arkansas. And maybe it's, man, I don't know. Geographically, maybe it made the most sense. I don't know, Dennis. I'll give you the floor on that, man. You still mad?
My goodness. All the teams that are out there that Arkansas has great cities and budding rivalries with, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, LSU, Texas will be a natural one, Oklahoma, and we get
I would have liked for it to be LSU. They're desperately trying to push LSU and Texas A&M to be rivals. I understand that LSU and Arkansas really aren't in football. Obviously, they play for the boot, but they have had a lot more to talk about than LSU, Texas A&M. I would have liked to have seen Arkansas got that, and then obviously LSU and Mississippi State really are rivals in baseball, so that would have been much nicer for y'all. When I look at it, and I think AJ probably agrees, I feel like it was geographically done for the most part. I mean, obviously you had some that they did that were just staples, but for the most part, I don't know. Do you feel the same way, Dennis?
Yeah, it was geographical, and plus, if you'll notice with the battle line, and I absolutely despise that, the battle line they've tried to push the last several years. You sort of knew it was going to happen, the way it's been being pushed in football. And so when Texas and Oklahoma were coming on board and they did the conference realignment, you sort of had an inkling it was going to happen, just didn't like seeing it come to fruition.
Yeah, no doubt. So, like I said, we're going to close this thing up. We could do this all day, but check out the latest episode from Dennis and Omahags by Fireside. Like I said, he gets a unique perspective, and he got the Lanzilli brothers, with Chris and Cam. Man, I loved it. It was great insight. You get both brothers, sharing their side of how all this goes down. And they talk about life too, right? It's not just all baseball. AJ last night did the breakdown with Caleb Freeman, but I would, tell you to go check out all 7 episodes. He didn't have Alex last night, but him and Alex have been making their ways through the SEC. Only a couple teams left, and they're actually going to jump outside the SEC. They're going to do one Big 12, one Pac-12, and one ACC episode before the season starts. But 2 guests on each episode, really doing a deep dive into the teams, talking to the players. So great stuff from them. Last night, like I said, we had Aiden Jimenez, and then tonight have on mind blanking Moore from Kentucky. And then I gotta look at my guys doing so many episodes, I'm losing where I'm at, what's next and who. Let me see. Yeah, so Mason Moore tonight, and then Dylan Dreiling from Tennessee tomorrow. So another big Tennessee episode. But follow all 3 of us. Obviously, you can see AJ_DOWBN 13. Dennis, yours actually isn't on there. What's yours exactly? Is it just straight out BAUM Squad?
It's at Metters Dennis or BAUM Squad. It's my last name, first name. So
yeah, when I just type, as soon as I type in BA, because I tell you so much, it just automatically pops up BAUM Squad. And then I'm IOTB producer. But check all 3 of us out on Twitter. Check out what we got going on. Like AJ said, follow College Baseball Central and all the things they got going. Stay tuned, because over the next month, we are going to be pushing stuff, getting ready for college baseball season. It can't get here soon enough, but thank both you guys for your time today. And, man, look forward to everything y'all got on deck.
Continue to grow the game that we love. That's what it's all about. Push these guys that are out there playing it, get their stories out there, and grow the game of college baseball.
Man, we only got a month until first pitch.
Let's go. All right, boys. Have a good one.
Have a great one, guys.